The storm was coming. That much we knew. It sat on the horizon like a mocking god, slowly consuming the blue sky with pitch-white cloud and swirls of ice. The world may have gone cold and dead, but what laid beyond that foreboding edge of cloud that crept slowly towards its desperate, trapped prey was far worse. A cold that bit into the very soul. One that tore at the heart, whose winds would cut through our streets like a razor through flesh, whose very visage struck terror and panic into the last city on Earth. We must be ready. The researchers holed up in their cobblestone building, towering up alongside the generators, tell me we have but a week. Perhaps more, but only by inches. The cold would freeze our plants, kill our hunters. Food, then, must be a priority. I have always sought to run this city with a just and even hand, to give the voices to my people, to abide by their will, ensuring hope, not fear, will determine our destiny. I fear my actions have been naive. It seems nature will not honor the ethical standards of men, and so, neither may I. As players, we enforce our will upon games. But how do games enforce their will upon us? For the most part, video games are power fantasies or challenging struggles in which our perseverance shapes the game that we play. We defeat bosses, we destroy enemies, we empower ourselves. Even Dark Souls, a game that is the opposite of a power fantasy, does this. These games give us the option to do things that we wouldn't normally do, but how often do games impress upon us their morality, instead of us impressing our morality upon them? I found myself playing Frostpunk last night. It's a city management sim about keeping a small settlement alive in what is effectively an ice age. The temperature keeps dropping, resources are scarce, and you must maximize the utility of everything in order to keep as many people alive as possible. But these people aren't rational actors. They're not always 100% on the nose doing what you want them to. They despair, they go mad, they do stupid things, they rebel. So this game is about managing people as much as it is usually about managing resources. And it strikes an incredibly dour and melancholic tone, which makes sense, because the studio behind Frostpunk is also behind one of the most darkly chilling games of this generation, This War of Mine. To say that 11-Bit Studios has something of a tone that they like to sit on is kind of an understatement. Incredibly depressing games seem to be their absolute forte. I have this belief about winning a game of Frostpunk, or winning a game of This War of Mine. I ask myself whether or not it is really possible to win these games. At least, winning them in a pure and perfect context doesn't seem very probable. It would take an incredible amount of forethought and planning. Oh, you can get through a map. You can get through the game itself without losing. You can complete every objective and keep every single person in your city alive. That shouldn't be too bad. What I mean when I say winning in a pure and perfect context is winning the game with your own ethical standards intact. 11-bit games seems extremely good at making games that are almost impossible to win by these conditions. They protest, they complain, but my guardsmen know loyalty. Sworn at the outset of this coming disaster. When the hunters and the cooks came to me in disgust when I demanded they work without stop, they would first be placated with words, and failing that, by truncheon. Do these people not understand? If I offer them freedom now, in our time of need, they will merely starve, given a week. When the ice kills our crops and grounds our airships, nobody will be left to rest. Their families will rely on their actions now. So they will work, and they will prepare the meals we need. And they will do so until they can no longer stand. And if they seek to stop before that, then they are just as much murderers as the storm upon our doorstep. Morality in games as a concept generally comes off as a little bit stagnant and terrible. A lot of games fall into something very similar to what Mass Effect or the Knights of the Old Republic games do. You're often prompted with two choices, or maybe a few more, but generally they fall into a gradient of good boy points and bad boy points. Whichever one you decide, you do. Morality in this is an interesting option, but it largely just serves as flavor. It doesn't really challenge you. You enforce your morality upon the game, therefore. Another game that does this, and does it much better, is a game called Tyranny. Tyranny is an RPG by Obsidian Entertainment. They are an excellent studio for RPGs. They made the Pillars of Eternity games, Fallout New Vegas, and they are soon to be releasing The Outer Worlds. Their games are extremely well written, so it makes sense that games like Pillars of Eternity and Tyranny present you with much more interesting and multifaceted choices. In Tyranny, you play a minion of the villain, and you have to make choices that actually have a lot of gravity, weight, and more importantly, good arguments on both sides. For example, the evil empire that you work for is actually fairly egalitarian. Men and women are considered equals, and people are generally educated and well off. But they are under the ruling thumb of an evil overlord, who is willing to wage wars and exploit resources. He cares not for culture and seeks more for assimilation and destruction of identity. Meanwhile, you can side with the invaded nation of Tyranny, who are, while much more honoring of concepts like freedom and justice, are also kind of terrible in their own right. They are extremely prejudiced on one side or the other. Many of their citizens are utterly illiterate. Men can't own property and women can't own ships for some reason. It's an interesting counterbalance because it asks you, again, what your ethical standards are and then has you apply them to the game. But you're still applying your own ethics to this game. You're not being enforced upon. Very few games present a truly strong challenge to someone's character. A challenge strong enough that they might slip. They might concede their morals. This is, in my opinion, the ultimate apex of a moral choice system. A moral choice system that doesn't just ask you what your morality is and asks you to enforce it upon the world, but tells you what the better choice might be, and asks you what you're willing to give up in exchange for that better option. And yet the ignorant rabble still protests and riots. The people refuse to work. So I took the ultimate step. Today I ordered the watch commander to take one of these protesters, a man who has spread sedition and terror among the populace, who demanded I relax my policies. The watch commander and his guards lashed this man to a platform before the generator. During the evening meeting, we opened the pipes and burned him until we were sure he was dead. The watch commander assures me I have done the right thing, that the protesters will now think twice about rebelling again. What the people think of me now is meaningless. The storm is merely 2 days away. They can judge me once it passes. So in 2010, Lionhead Studios and Microsoft released Fable 3, which some of you might remember. It wasn't a very good game, and in the context of the discussion we're having today, it's not a very good morality system. The Fable games have a very strict good and evil paradigm to them. I mean, one of the games allows you to eat a live baby chick in order to get dark side points, which is a little bit fucked up, but whatever. Fable 3 wasn't a very good game, but let me kind of break it down for you. At the beginning of the game, for about 80% of it, you are deposing a tyrant king. This tyrant king is evil and doing bad stuff and exploiting his people, and you rise up to defeat him. The other 20% of the game involves you taking over the kingdom. But Fable 3 has a little bit of a twist in the math for you. As you depose this king, you realize that there is some sort of evil threat from across the sea, a monstrous invasion that is coming in 1 year's time. After deposing the king, you realize that his actions weren't simply to enrich himself, but also to prepare the kingdom for this coming invasion. He was not exploiting the people for his own personal gain. He was exploiting them for the good of all. Why he didn't just talk about this kind of stuff, I think they explain in the game. I don't know. I played it like fucking 9 years ago. It's not a big deal. The point is, this king was being evil for the sake of being good. And for the remaining 20% of Fable 3, you now have to make decisions. Generally between two options on how you tackle a specific problem. Are you going to stick to your guns? Those promises that you might have made while rising up against the tyrant? Or are you going to fold? Are you going to go back on those promises in order to build up a standing army and protect the people of this kingdom from that coming invasion? An invasion that, if I recall correctly, you don't really actually take part in. You just kind of like get the aggregate of your choices at the end of the game. Fable 3 wasn't very good. This is that Fable 3 attempts to challenge your moral standing. It wants to see how well-grounded you are in your own beliefs. If you rose your way through the game as a good person, you're now challenged with the idea that you have to be a bad person in order to protect these people. You might make some evil choices now, choices that were completely antithetical to how you played the game, because you have new knowledge. The game is challenging your ethical standards. It's just not doing it very well. The cold has come, and the generator's heat thumbs outwards. We've taken its advances as far as we can, and now we push its very limits. The mines are now our lifeline, supplying the vital coal that fires the generator's life-giving core. Though even they are threatened with failure. As cold creeps in, it damages pipes and struts and other machines. Many volunteers descended into those mines, hoping to repair the damage before it cuts off this vital lifeline. The names of those heroes will forever be etched upon the walls of the generator. Heroes of our people, of our city, to be remembered for their sacrifice in the name of their duty. As the temperature drops, as the cold rips at our bones, the Watch Commander and I continue to assure the people that we will survive this storm united. Our city will survive. Protesters from the mines and the cookhouses lash out or refrain from attending their work, and they are punished, put on display for all to see. In the face of the sacrifice of those miners who descended into the depths, these people would give up hope? Traitors of a kind most vile, spitting on the sacrifices of heroes. The generator delivered heat this day, but also it delivers death to those who would stand against this city. Survival is often the ultimate question. What would you do to survive? A lot of games are concerned with the how of survival, gathering and managing resources, construction, crafting, whatever actions are tied to the actual current conflict or predicament. Take a game like Subnautica. In this game, you survive through crafting, exploring, and eating, and whatever you need to do. But you're never asked about what you need to give up, or more importantly, if it is worth surviving in the first place. Survival is probably the strongest core argument you can make when prompting someone with a moral dilemma. What are you willing to give up to survive? What ethics will you concede when your life or the lives of others are on the line? A lot of games explore this on some level, but very few do it in a manner that is emergent. I'm sure there's a route in Frostpunk in which you can win, in my definition of winning. A route through Frostpunk in which you build your city, and never once are you challenged to concede on your moral grounds. You overcome the evils of the world through your own strength, through the strength of your morals, through the strength of what you believe is right. But I honestly believe that that victory is far, far more difficult than just conceding. Deciding to become a totalitarian dictator, to force people to work, to throw people out of your city, to kill and murder to make examples. These make the act of completing Frostpunk far easier. And it allows you to reach that victory screen at the cost of however many lives you're willing to throw at the problem. However many ideals you're willing to give up on. Because I honestly believe that most people are good, but in a bad situation, most of us will have to give up some of that goodness in order to survive. The ideal victory condition of Frostpunk is not to just win. It's to win with your morals intact. Because Frostpunk enforces its morality upon you. It wants to know what you're willing to give up. What will you give up for your city to win? To survive? What kind of person will you become in order to win Frostpunk? It is very, very difficult to answer that question with your own ethical standards in mind. The scientists of the workshop have assured me that the storm will break by morning, but that this night would see temperatures far below any we have faced before. 150 below zero, or worse. So cold that the skin on your bones would freeze and shatter in seconds. The people refuse to work. The guards refuse to work. I did not fight them on this. They say it shall be our final hour, but I believe it shall be our finest hour. The mines remain. We still have food to eat, and the coal that we have brought up is more than enough to sustain us through the night. But the generator creaks and groans against the chill wind. Its fires have blazed too brightly for too long, and I fear it may yet fail, plunging us into an icy doom. The watch commander and I sit at the foot of the generator, sharing a drink, knowing that tonight we push the machine to its very breaking point. As families huddle in their homes, not even our considerable advances in technology will help us. This cold will kill us. The overdrive is prepared. All it must do is hold until morning, until dawn breaks. I pray it was worth it. The sacrifices, the violence, the death, the horrible things that I have done. I pray to whatever gods remain in this cold wasteland that my cruelty was not for nothing, and that this city will yet see the dawn. Thanks for watching, everybody. This episode of What is Matt Playing This Week, subsidiary of the Orange Hatter, is brought to you by the Orange Hatter Discord, where we talk about video games and play quite a few video games in our own little awesome community. If you're interested, you should hop on down in. We're always accepting and inviting of new people, and we're happy to include you in the discussion. If you want to tell me how wrong I am about this game, you're more than welcome to do so in the comments as well. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, share, all of that noise. Ring the bell, that's a new thing. God, I've been away from YouTube for so long that they added a bell. Shit's weird. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show, and you all have a great one.